let's put the spotlight on the misunderstood English ivy. G'day and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kathy and this is where I talk about all my plants. Today I want to put the spotlight on the English ivy, a beautiful, underrated and misunderstood plant in my opinion anyway. Now I have owned my English ivy for over a year and it has grown really well for me, so I thought I would share my care tips with you. Before we get on to the care tips, I'm going to go through some of the history of the English ivy. The English ivy falls within the family Areliacea, and I know I mispronounced it, so I'll put it on the screen. It is a flowering family and the genus itself is Hedera. The species name is Helix and there are approximately 30 cultivars. I have noticed though recently in Australia that there seem to be more and more cultivars. I don't know if they're new or not. One of them is the camouflage ivy, which is very popular, and also other variegated versions. The Hedera Helix or English ivy was first identified by a Swedish botanist, Carl Linnaeus, in 1753. I have seen his name crop up a lot, so I'm assuming he identified quite a few different species at that time. The English ivy is native to Europe and Western Asia, and if you're like me, I'm sure you have seen the English ivy covering entire buildings, which I think looks spectacular. An interesting fact that I learned recently is that apparently an extract from the ivy is used in cough medicines. I do love learning something new about my plants. The English ivy is often described as a rampant vining plant. It can grow up to 20 to 30 meters long, which is very big. English ivy generally likes to climb, but if it does not have anything to climb up, it will spread. And they usually attach to things through these aerial rootlets, I think that's what they're called, and pads, which is how we find them covering entire buildings or fences or walls. The problem is that when you detach those pads, it can actually bring down fences and perhaps other buildings that might not be very well built to begin with. Now, if you have yours indoors near a wall, it might also attach to that or to pieces of your furniture. So if I were you, I would be careful where you place your English ivy. Apparently, when you detach these rootlets, they can cause some damage to either plaster or your furniture. Now, in some countries like Australia, New Zealand and the USA, and I'm sure others, the English ivy is considered a noxious weed or invasive species simply because they grow so aggressively fast. Because of its ability to cover entire buildings, it is apparently very good insulation for buildings, for homes. It retains the heat in winter and it keeps houses cool in summer. So it does have some benefits, of course. And let's be honest, they do look spectacular when they're covering entire buildings. English ivy, Hedera Helix, does actually flower, usually late summer to autumn. I don't know if they would flower indoors. I'm sure that they might, but in my experience, most indoor plants don't actually flower. But that is not to say that it can't happen. Now I wanted to talk about its care requirements. Let's start off with lighting. Outdoors, English ivy can grow in full sun. Therefore, they would obviously prefer the brightest light we can give them in our homes. However, they can also grow in medium light levels, say 2 to 3 meters back from your brightest window. The variegated versions apparently tolerate medium light levels better. However, you might find that the variegation starts to fade. Clearly, the more light you give your English ivy, the faster it will grow. You may not want it to grow very fast, so you can give it lower light levels. My English ivy hangs approximately 1 meter back from my north-facing windows, which is the brightest light we can give our plants in Australia. When I bought it, it was not trailing at all. Now I would say it is probably around 2 meters, if not longer. The fact is that I don't know how long it is because I loop it around itself. I didn't want it trailing down to the floor, so every time a vine grows extra long, I would just loop it back up. And I will say that my ivy grew throughout the year, including winter. But now I am noticing more growth because it is spring here. The English ivy can tolerate the regular humidity levels in our homes. I don't believe you need a humidifier or to provide it with any extra humidity. That is not to say that they won't like it, but it's not necessary to run a humidifier for the English ivy to thrive in your home. Where mine currently sits in the kitchen, which is an open plan area, my humidity levels are between, say, 38 and 55, depending upon the day. And it has grown really well for me since I've had it. English ivy does not like to dry out, but like most plants, it does not like to be soggy either. Now, because I have owned my ivy for over a year, I know when it requires watering, and I find I water it every week. However, you cannot take how often I water my plant as a guide when you should water your plant. It will entirely depend upon the conditions in your home. It would depend upon your climate, the size of the pot, and other factors like that. If you're not sure if your ivy requires water, then I would recommend you use a moisture meter. If I was to use one, I would wait until it reads 3 or lower before I water my plant. Generally speaking, you repot a plant when it requires it, in the sense that it has outgrown the pot it is in. I have not needed to repot my plant, and I have had it for over a year. With respect to the kind of potting soil you should use for your English ivy, I think a general all-purpose potting mix is sufficient. I don't believe you need to add any amendments like perlite or pumice, but it is entirely up to you if you do so or not. I have not propagated my plant because I don't really need another pot of it. From my reading though, it is apparently quite easy. In order to propagate the ivy, you would take stem cuttings that are between 10 to 15 centimeters or 5 to 6 inches long. You will then need to place it either in water or whatever medium you prefer for propagation. Given how quickly these grow, I would not be surprised if they root really easily. All plants like some pruning. If you find that yours has outgrown its space or it is getting out of control, you can always prune it back. Most plants react very well to pruning, and you can always use those parts that you prune off for propagation purposes, if you wanted to anyway. I do believe that all plants should be fertilized. After a certain amount of time, the nutrients in the soil that they're in will disappear, and we should supplement that with fertilizer. There were a few months where I did not fertilize my plant because it was growing so fast, but they definitely react well to being fertilized. And as to the kind of fertilizer you can use, it can be a slow release fertilizer or it can be a liquid fertilizer. It's entirely up to you. One of the problems you may face with your English ivy is that you will get crispy leaves. Apparently, that usually occurs because the English ivy does not like drafts or extremes in temperature. You might also get crispy leaves because the humidity levels may be far too low. It is surprising that ivies cannot tolerate extremes in temperature, given that they can live outdoors, but that is what the research I have done has indicated. Another problem that seems to occur regularly with the English ivy is fungal issues, which usually occur as a result of overwatering. Prevention is always best, so try to avoid overwatering your English ivy. However, if you do face fungal issues, there are always fungicides that you can buy from any nurseries to treat it. From what I have read, those are the two major problems that most people face with the English ivies. Pests. Okay. I have seen a lot of comments and I've read a lot of articles. I've seen a lot of videos where people say that they refuse to have English ivy in their home because they are spider mite magnets. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you what my experience has been. I've had my plant for over a year and it has never had spider mites. However, ironically enough, I did have an outbreak of spider mites in my home in June and July of this year. My English ivy was unaffected. There were no spider mites ever on it. So that has actually made me wonder whether it is our climate, and that's why my ivy was not attacked by spider mites. Another reason might be that I spray my plant with sea salt, which is an Australian seaweed extract product. It helps plants to establish roots, but it also apparently can help them fight off pests, and perhaps that's why my English ivy wasn't affected by spider mites. I really don't know. Now, I have actually made a video on spider mites and treating them, and I'll link it somewhere up here. Generally speaking, pests of any kind, including spider mites, attack plants that aren't healthy or aren't doing well for any particular reason. Spider mites also like hot and dry conditions and will attack plants that are water stressed. One way to hopefully prevent spider mites is to thoroughly wash down the leaves every week. It won't get rid of them, but it may knock off quite a few. And there are, of course, other treatments that you can use to get rid of spider mites. Now, spider mites seem to be the bane of most English ivy lovers overseas. But that does not mean that your plant can't be attacked by other pests. As I said before, the healthier a plant is, the less susceptible they are to pests, or the better they are at combating pests. I have to admit, I am very partial to my English ivy. I really love the way it trails down and looks so full and healthy. Now, I do have a thing for little leaves, and the English ivy has these deceptively delicate looking leaves. Given how invasive it really isn't a delicate plant. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this spotlight on the beautiful and misunderstood English ivy. Let me know what your experience has been with the English ivy, and you can let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. Well, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found this video useful, and if you did, you can give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to my channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Until next time, take care guys. Bye.